Welcome to the FI Investors Podcast, helping you achieve financial independence through real estate investing, one episode at a time. We talk about personal finance, mindset, and real estate investing. Whether you're a rookie or looking to scale your portfolio, we're here to provide you with the tactics and actionable steps to achieve your goals. Here are your hosts, Diego Corzo and Ward Mahoney.
What is up, Ward? How are you today?
Diego, my man, I am stoked for our first episode here today with co-living expert Sam Wegert, brother.
Yes, he is our first guest for the FI Investors Podcast, and I'm super excited because I've been friends with Sam for the past, I would say, 9 years. We got connected through GoBundance. I've seen his journey. He was one of the reasons why I was so inspired with his story is because he started his entrepreneurial journey super early. Mm-hmm. And then by the time that I met him, he was 23, he was already a millionaire. And just like how he lived his life, how he grew his portfolio, and now he's killing it through co-living. I think he said he had over 150 doors right now and growing, and just the transition of going from business side to real estate side, and you see his growth. And not only on the monetary side, but also the person that he is through learning and growing through the Tony Robbins events and the mindset. And I feel like the audience is definitely going to take a lot from it. He definitely dropped some knowledge bombs, quotes for people to write down. So I'm super excited for this podcast.
Awesome, man. Yeah, if you are young, you're hungry, you're looking to get into real estate, whether it's house hacking, want to live about co-living, this is a killer episode, and you cannot miss this one. I am stoked for everybody who's about to see it.
And also, one of the things that he even mentioned was that even if you're older and you want to get into co-living, he mentioned a few strategies of how you can partner up and also continue to grow. So this podcast is awesome. There's a lot of knowledge on it. So enjoy it, and we'll see you next time.
Yes, sir. We'll see you soon.
Awesome. Sam, how are you doing? Welcome to the FI Investor Podcast.
Thanks, guys. Honored to be on. This is awesome. Love the setup. Love being on. Love seeing all you guys. Thank you.
Yes. And Ward, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Sam, stoked to have you here. This is one of our first episodes. Sam was one of our first guests. He's got an incredible story, and I cannot wait to dive deep into Sam's story here.
Yes, and Sam, it is an honor to have you here as part of on the FI Investors Podcast. We had you also as a speaker at the FI Investors Retreat in Puerto Rico, so that was awesome. And I know that the audience is definitely going to take a lot of great gems from this podcast. Your story is super inspiring. It inspired me when I met you back in 2014, I think, and it's been incredible to see your growth. And to see how you've gone from your martial arts school to everything that you're building now, going on the Airbnb, the co-living route, and just everything that you're doing. So can't wait to hear more about it. So tell us, Sam, a little bit about yourself, how you got started, and also we'll share a little bit later on how we met and everything.
Yeah, man. Yeah, thanks, guys. It's been a journey, right? I think that's a great word to describe any entrepreneurial pursuit is like, it just, you never really know where it's going to take you. So, I got started at a really young age. I was homeschooled, and my parents kind of wanted to live this like off the grid lifestyle, which interestingly enough is coming back. They were like doing it before anybody was doing it. And now it's like coming back. People want to do it now, but so they decided to homeschool all 8 of their children. So I'm one of 8. And, I was homeschooled, and I had this drive from a young age. And Diego, I know you and I have connected on this of like, I just wanted to prove that I could be somebody, and for me, the way that I thought I could do that was to make more money than everybody else, and so it just gave me this drive to like be somebody and go out into the world. And so I had this opportunity. I was taking martial arts at the time as my mom put me in. We all got one sport each. And my one sport was martial arts, and I had to give up soccer to do martial arts because my mom was like, I can't take 8 kids to 2 things. Like, it was one thing, right? So we did this one thing, and mine was martial arts. And I was at this school, and my instructor was just getting to a place. We were in a very, very small town, and he was burnt out. And he came to me one day and said, man, I want you to join like my instructor training program. And I was like 13 at the time. I was very young, but I acted older than I was. I was very mature, for my age. And So I said, sure, yeah, I'd love that. So I joined. My parents really supported it. They wanted me to have as many mentors as I could at a young age, which, I'm just commend my parents for so much. They had so much humility to like put their kids around other people who could be like father and mother figures. And that was huge, man. I mean, like I feel like I have like multiple second fathers, and I love my dad. My dad was a huge mentor in my life, but I have all these multiple second fathers and, people in GoBundance, I'm sure we'll talk about, Diego, but anyway, this guy ended up selling me this school at 15 years old for $15,000. And my parents loaned me the money to buy this school. It was a little martial arts school, had about 90, I think we had 98 students when I bought it. And I just was like, that was my entrepreneurial journey, man. And that was what really got me started on this journey. It's truly a journey because it's come a long way since then. But I set out to prove that I could do something, and I built that school up. I sold that school. I went to a town called Charlottesville, Virginia, where the University of Virginia is, and I built a school. Started in a little hotel room. Actually, I rented this hotel room, not like a room you sleep in with a bed, but like a little conference room. But it was the smallest conference room that I could have, and it was I went back and measured it later. I think it was like 12 feet by 12 feet. It's like small as crap, And I would go on the street corner and I would just hand out all my cards from a martial arts studio. And they would come into this hotel and I would sell them on the program. And then that was how we built what became one of the largest, most successful schools in the United States. It was in the top 1% for many years. I'm in the process of actually selling that school right now. But it was a huge success. And then from there I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, where I built additional schools, and I built a small franchise of about 6 locations and an online program with several thousand students. And so martial arts was my first foray into business, into entrepreneurship. It taught me so many lessons along the way. So I can go deeper into that if you want, or dive into real estate, but that's kind of like if people ask me like how I got started, that's kind of how I got started.
Yeah. And so I do want to ask you a couple of questions there, and then we'll switch to real estate on how you got started on that journey. But a lot of people, right, they want to start as an entrepreneur or start investing in real estate at a young age. And you were basically giving the keys to a business at age 15. What were some fears that, for example, went through your mind at such a young age of, hey, it's like, I don't know what I don't know in this business. I'm just going to say yes. But what were some fears or challenges that you had as you took over a business?
Yeah. I mean, I think, one of the biggest is just like, am I enough, right? Can I actually do this? And I think that's an inherent fear in every human being. But I mean, if we're just being real, I would just say like, the thing about running a business is the rent is due. We leased a space, right? We had a brick and mortar space. And so you have bills and you got a few staff members. And I didn't have a lot of staff members when I bought that first school. I was maybe me and 2 part-timers. But just like, I think it's such a tendency in business to tie your self-worth to your success. And you have to disconnect those a little bit. Maybe initially that's a nice drive, but if you don't, you will be just effed, because every time you'll have a little dip, you feel terrible about yourself, right? Or every time you don't hit your numbers, you feel terrible. So I think one of my challenges was, if I had a month that was not, it was just so closely tied to my self-worth that like, if I was making money, I just felt like I'd almost be cocky, if I was doing well in my brain, what well meant at the time,
Yeah.
And if I wasn't doing well, I just felt like something was wrong with me. I was like, what am I doing wrong? So I think that was that's an interesting challenge that I haven't really thought about in a long time, but I think getting started, that was a big one.
Yeah.
More practical challenges were just, learning how to recruit students and do that in a way that was like cost effective. I didn't know anything about online marketing. And so we went old school, man. And I think it's a good lesson for people who start businesses that like the old school stuff still works. And when I say old school, I mean, like I would go to, parades that were happening in downtown, and I would just walk the parade line before the parade actually started, where everybody's like lining up, and I would just hand out my cards. I had this little script I would use, and I would get an appointment from them to, so I'd do that. Every fair, every festival, I was there. I mean, we'd print off 1,000 flyers, and I would just hit every parking lot. And that was 1,000 flyers would probably hit every car in this little city, right? But like I would go to every, and put under windshield, and this stuff worked, right? I'd stand out in front of a gas station actually for the longest time and just ask people as they were coming out, like, hey, and I know you're involved in some, a company that does like cold calling, right? And some of this stuff, like some people think this stuff doesn't work, but like this stuff still works. It's just the grind. You just got to get in front of it's a numbers game, right? So every no gets you closer to a yes, right? With these like little sayings that I would just say to myself to keep me going. But ultimately it was like, if I go out and talk to 100 people today, I'm going to get 10 that are going to tell me yes, and they'll come in for an appointment, and half of those will come in. And so just realizing that there's really two big skills you have to have in life. And this is something Tony Robbins has taught me, is that one, to be the most successful in life, you have to have the science of achievement. And he uses the word science because the science of achievement is just that. It's just a science. It's literally like numbers. Like, it's like, hey, if you're not successful, you're either doing the wrong things, you're not doing enough of the right things, right? And so recognizing that, like, it doesn't matter what your age is, doesn't matter what your background is, your ethnicity, your race, like anybody can become successful if they just follow the science. And then the other skill that I've had to learn more recently is the art of fulfillment. And Diego, you've been a big inspiration to me on this. And that is like, and it's an art. And we use the word art because it's different for every single person. Like, we all have like little things and tweaks and things that make us different, that are fulfilled. So, learning the science was a big piece of what I learned along that first part of the journey.
Yeah. And I feel like the science part is something that people can, they can get from experience. They can also learn from books. They can learn a little bit on podcasts, right? But it's the art is something that's more internal. That it's similar to what you said about that in the beginning, your self-worth, right, was more on if you had a profit or if you made income that month, and if you didn't, oh my gosh, you're a failure, right? And looking at it, when was the time that you decided that wasn't the best way to look at how you felt, right? And at that point becomes more the art, right, of you saying, hey, you know what? The money shouldn't attach to how I feel if I'm a success or a failure. When did that change started happening for you?
Yeah, it changed. I know exactly when it started to change. It didn't change immediately, but so I was probably 22 years old. I was in Charlottesville, Virginia, and I was like on cloud 9 because my school was doing super well. And I had a mentor call me up and he said, hey man, there's these 5 martial arts schools that are just failing, and they're all in Charlotte, North Carolina. Like, you should go down, you should buy them. And like, I'll broker the deal. So one of my mentors, he's like, I'll broker the deal. He's like, you've got your brother already running your school in Virginia. So like, I thought I had like retired. I was like 27. I was like, I'm making $4,000 a month, $5,000 a month. It wasn't a ton, but I was like making enough to like live my little lifestyle. Right. And so I'm like, okay, I'll do this. So I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, and I bought these schools. I spent basically my life savings. Everything I'd saved. I'm a big saver. So everything I'd saved, sold some of my old silver, I buy these silver coins, and I sold like all my little mini investments, and, what happened is all the staff members ended up quitting within the first like 2 months. And you can't run a martial arts school without staff, right? So they all quit. They all were all like, no, like, you're not part of our organization. I thought I could just go in and be Tony Robbins and inspire them a little bit and then do that. And it was, my self-worth and my success were so tied together at that time in my life. I remember I lived across the street from this little, very like public old golf course. And I would go out there late at night, and I would just like, I had so much stress in my body, man. I would just like scream at the top of my lungs. I remember being like so angry. I was just like yelling on this golf course at like 10 p.m. at night. Like, I just like walk the golf course and be like, what the F is going on in my life? And looking back on it seems silly now, because I was just like, hey, one of my schools were failing. I had to like basically lost my life savings. Not, I ended up having to give one of the schools I bought. I had to give it back to the guy. And then he was like, fine, I'm going to sue you because, you were supposed to take over the lease. And I was like, I can't pay the lease. So it was just one of these really low times in my life. And I thought, maybe this is not how I want to live my life with these things tied that close together. And it started me off on that journey of, and again, Diego, this is something you've taught me in a lot of ways, but like, started me off on this journey of like, why am I trying to be so successful? And I realized I'm trying to be so successful because I want to feel certain feelings. And a lot of times the shortcut is just to go to the feeling. Like, oh, I want to feel connection with other people, or I want to feel, confidence. Like, you can go straight to those feelings. There's other ways to get them than having to do this whole big goal, to create those. So that was the moment it started to shift for me.
No, that's good. That's good. Especially, and I'm glad that, of course, it was 7 years into your entrepreneur journey, but it happened young enough that now you're what, like 31, 32? Yeah. 32, so it's like you've had 10 years of experience now after you had that change of mind. And I bet you, and I know that it has, that transition has helped you in a huge way, because now you have so many different businesses too, and so many different things on the real estate that we are gonna get to in a bit. But I don't know, do you have any questions or anything on?
Yeah, Sam, something you mentioned twice here was just the role of mentors. Can you walk us through how you found these mentors? Because you said it's starting at 15, you had a bunch of different mentors, and then what role did they play as you were going out and acquiring these businesses as early as 15 years old?
Yeah, man, that's something I just got super lucky in. And so when I bought that school at 15, before that instructor that sold that school to me, before he took off and went professional bass fishing, which was like his dream. So it's what he went off to go focus on the fulfillment side of things, right? He said, the one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hire, he's like, you're going to pay them, but I'm going to hire you a consultant. And that consultant is going to like hold your hand. You're only 15. He'll literally show up at your school. He'll give you scripts. He'll teach you. And I look back on that. And even though later I did have a falling out with that consultant, I would not be sitting here on this podcast with you today without that guy. I mean, it's that type of just, there are just people in life who do so well. You two are two of those people who just, part of their mission in life is to guide others, you know? And this was this guy. His name was Master Arthur. He was a a black belt, a really powerful black belt, but also a business consultant. And he gave me a franchisable system. I for the first few years, I just did what he said. And I wish people that had mentors would just do that more. Like a lot of times you first have to model, you first have to copy. And once you learn by copying, you can then go and adjust and adapt. But I think a lot of people hear stuff and they always try to I feel like they try to make it their own too soon. You know, they're like, oh, well, and they adjust it all. And so I was really lucky in that I didn't know any better. I just was like, well, he says to do it. Like, I don't know any better. I'm just going to go do what he says. And I went and did what he said. I mean, literally, it's stupid stuff. He'd be like, wear a name tag that says, ask me about martial arts. So I'd like wear a name tag for the next week, like everywhere I'd go with like things like that to get new students.
That's awesome.
I was real. So that was literally kind of put in my lap, Ward. And then that mentor taught me the value of mentors. And so it was like Tony Robbins was the next guy, right? And I, never really met him. I've shook his hand, but never really met him. But still from afar, I've listened to like everything he's produced and everything that he's put out, because he really resonated with what I needed to learn. And I feel like when people find a mentor that's right for them, there's something about them that will resonate. And then I think it's just important that people just kind of like do what they say, especially if they really truly believe that they have integrity. I'm a big learner by doing too and taking action. So that was the biggest way that I learned, was actually diving in and doing that. But how else did I find mentors? I guess I found a lot of mentors just by being in that environment, and the Tony environment. That's really big to have mentors. And then joining GoBundance, we can dive into that if you want, Diego. But just always feeling like I wanted to be the small fish in a big pond. And eventually just growing into that was really important. It was something I just valued from a really, really young age. And I think my parents modeled it.
And one of the things that's true too with the mentors is that success leaves clues, right? And if you understand that from the beginning, then you know that if they're telling you what to do, and like you said, you trust them and they have integrity, is more of like, okay, I'm trusting you, let's go. Because that's what happened when I joined the guys in GoBundance, right? And I want you to share a little bit on that story too, because I feel like once you're surrounding yourself with those mentors and you take action, that is the shortcut, I think, to success. And a lot of people say there are no shortcuts. I believe that is the one shortcut that exists in life. That of course you might have to pay for them, you might have to work for free for them, but at the end of the day, if you do take action, it will give you a shortcut to success. So Sam, tell us a little bit about how you got involved with GoBundance, because that's actually where you and I met.
Yeah, it was, man, it was so much in my life as I look back at my life. And I think this is important for people to realize too, is like life, we started this podcast off with like life's a journey, right? And so for people to kind of lean into that journey and not fight it too hard. And so, I think that life provides us the opportunities we need at the right moment. I really believe that. I know that sounds woo-woo and maybe a little airy-fairy for a success podcast, but I mean, I think if people were to just pay more attention, right, to the opportunities, to the people, if you're listening to this podcast, like this is the universe, this is God, whatever you want to call it, right? Is like you're listening to this, like it's providing you some little clues, like you're saying, or some little bumps. I just think people are so busy, they just don't listen to those. So, for me, it wasn't like I was seeking, but it really kind of came to me. Like I always say, it found me, right? A lot of these things do. And I say yes to the opportunities. And I know that all three of us on this podcast are like big on that too. It's like, there's opportunities that come. Yeah, you go. And it's like,
exactly. And really quick, because you mentioned this on the universe part. Yesterday, I posted a story that said, imagine that the universe, I mentioned, what if you had the belief that the universe is conspiring 100% in your favor? Like, how would you act?
Wow.
Right? And it's similar to how, to what you're talking about. Is like the universe gives you little clues here or there that actually help you, that get to help you if you choose that philosophy.
If you choose. If you say yes, like my dad would always say, like, say yes unless you have like a super damn good reason to say no. Like say yes, like that is yes to life. Be 100% yes to life. But what happens is like our mindset gets in the way, man. Like, oh, I want to join FI Investors. Oh, well, there's this cost, and then we put all these little barriers. Oh, it's this time commitment or this, and it's like, guys, like at the end of the day, if it's there for a reason. Like it's calling you, and people just need to lean into that and kind of lean into those fears. Is what I found. So I had to do that with GoBundance. I was looking for a mastermind. It was just at the time in my life where I felt like I had outgrown some of my other mentors. And that's a valuable principle too, by the way, like for people listening to this, like you do outgrow mentors. Like, absolutely. Like I read a book by Andre Agassi, who's like a really amazing, like one of the best in the world tennis players. And like, if you read his book, I forget, it was called, forget his autobiography, but it's a really good book. He talks about how like he would kind of outgrow a coach, and he'd talk to his manager and be like, we need a new coach. Like fire the old one, get a new coach. Like that's just how it rolls. And so that's definitely been my journey of like, I've had a mentor. I would have a mentor for a while, and I'd be like, cool, man. Like I've been with you for 3-4 years. I feel like I've learned a lot from you. I've implemented, obviously being one of the key, you'll never outgrow a mentor if you never implement what they say. That's a key point. Like if you implement everything they say, then it's easy to go and be like, I've implemented everything you've said, and now I'm like, it feels like I need to move on to the next mentor. So that was definitely a piece of my journey. I would have a consultant, then I would hire another consultant, and I would kind of just move on. I'd stick one for 3 to 4 years, and maybe sometimes longer. And then I was in a place where I had just I'd been with my other consultant in my martial arts business for 4 or 5 years. And I just felt like it was time. I'd implemented a ton of what he said. I felt like it was time to move on to the next group. And I was at an event. So I guess here's the principle. Like if you don't do anything, you get nothing, right? Like I was out there, I was seeking, one of my favorite verses in the Bible is seek and you shall find, right? Like, so like I'm out there, I'm seeking, I'm looking, and then it came to me. So maybe I was really looking for it now that I'm telling the story. It was found me, I found it. I'm not exactly sure, but there was a guy, Mo Chomil, who I think
of course.
And he was there. He was in GoBundance. He's like, hey man, like I'm just so impressed with you. You're out here, you're so young. I was at a seminar called Business Mastery, and he's like, why don't you just like let's hang out, let's grab dinner tonight. So I grabbed dinner with them, and we went hung out that night, and then a year later, I pinged him because I was in Washington D.C. and that's where he lived, and he was like, oh man, like come meet up with me. So I met up with him, and then he's like, there's this thing, and it's just starting. And it's guys only, which I was kind of looking for like a guys only group, because I wasn't married at the time. And I just thought I needed some good male role models, some additional male role models in my life. And so he invited me to an event. It was the event I met you at. It was in Tahoe. I think we met on a call right before that.
The David Osborne call. And you shared about your car and your goal. Yeah. And I was like, holy crap. I was like super inspired because you were sharing about how you had a goal to have a Corvette or some car. Yeah. And I was 24 years old at that time, and you were 23, I believe. And I was like, holy crap, this guy's 23 years old. He's already a millionaire, and I just want to learn from him. So after that, I pinged you. So, yeah.
Yeah, man, it was great to connect with you. That was some magical moment. And then I think the first event we had, Robert
Exactly.
Kiyosaki was there talking about real estate.
What an
And
event.
these guys just, yeah, what a lesson they taught me. I mean, it was like, hey, they pulled me aside. I feel like the GoBundance guys pulled me aside and said, hey, your business is doing good. Like my martial arts business at that time was doing pretty good. But they said, skim money off the top and diversify a little bit. Put it into something that will be here even if your business doesn't do good. Don't put it all back in the business. And that was such a valuable lesson for me because, you know, obviously 5, 6, 7 years later, whatever, COVID hits, he shuts my business down for 6 months. My CEO decides to go get on drugs and I have to fire him. And like, you know, the business takes a big hit from both of those things combined. I decided to sell some of the schools. And so here I am having built this whole other engine, if you will. And that was very, very, very valuable at that point, at that point in my life. So,
and Sam, if we take it back to the GoBundance event, and here's where we can start talking a little bit about the real estate part. Tell me a little bit about what Robert Kiyosaki told you at that event, because you and I were next to each other when you share a little bit of the strategy that you of how you invest.
Yeah. And I mean, look, I've come to believe that this strategy in this market today is one of if not the fastest and simplest ways to achieve financial freedom in real estate market right now. Just with interest rates being where they are and everything happening in the economy, and it's through this thing called co-living. I don't even think we knew the word co-living.
House hacking. It was there. It was house hacking. Right? That was the thing. It's like we are house hacking every single house.
Yeah. So we'd live in a house, and Diego, you did this too, and we would rent out the rooms. And, you know, I would buy another house. I'd buy a house, rent out the rooms, live in the master. And then I'd live in it for 1 year, you know, so I could get another primary residence mortgage every year. Right. And then I would live in the next house and I'd fill the primary bedroom up in that one. And then I'd go to the next one. Right. And I did that 3 or 4 times. And it was making double or triple the cash flow, you know, versus renting it out to a single family. But I didn't have the confidence to like go all in on the strategy. And so that's why I was so excited because Robert Kiyosaki was there and, you know, he's the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and just kind of the OG of real estate, you know, at least education in a lot of ways for us Americans. And basically he was, I said, hey man, I'm doing this thing. Like, is it going to work? And he says, man, that is the wave of the future, I believe. And I'm taking notes. I'm like, the wave of the future. He goes, I think when shit hits the fan, he goes, this is how people are going to choose to live because it's affordable and there's a community built in. So people are going to feel safer. And then he said, he leans in and he goes, actually, I live in a 4,500 square foot house and I already know how I'm going to like co-live and break up my house into like 6 different units. And I remember thinking, well, if it's good enough for Robert Kiyosaki, it's good enough for me. And he was like, I know people who are doing this. They're turning living rooms and dining rooms into extra bedrooms. They're putting 6, 7, 8, 9 people. At that point, I think I'd most put like 4 or 5 people in a home. And I was like, whoa. So he inspired me to take it even to a new level of having more people share a house in a really cool way. And he just gave me that confidence to go all in.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I was at that event with you. And that was also my first GoBundance, like the one with like 200 people or whatever with a special guest. And it was just so inspiring. And having you as a roommate too was good because we would learn and have these conversations, right, with the guys, with the speakers. And then we would go back to the hotel and be like, all right, what did you learn? What did I learn? And just share for hours. So yeah.
Right. It's like a mini event. It's always great to connect with people at events like that. If you can have a room with someone or share space with someone, because you get to have like an event within the event.
Right. And one thing I want to point out there too. So the thing that gave you that confidence to really go out and jump into co-living, it sounds like it was that event. It was surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals, having that conversation with Robert Kiyosaki. That's really kind of what gave you the push to go out and do that.
Kind of what you were saying earlier, Ward, about like mentors, right? Like just the role that they play in lives. Yeah, like I'm not sure I would have like continued to buy houses with that strategy because no one else was really doing it at the time. Oh, Diego, there was people doing it, but no one else was like doing it at scale. No one else was like pouring tons of money into it. So it was really the strategy for me of like, yes, it was a mentor and that event that surrounded me with the confidence to say, go all in, like you can do this.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say that's awesome because the other thing too is that I know you walk into that room within GoBundance and all of a sudden like the level of conversation is so elevated. It pushes you just on a whole new level to go out and just achieve so much more.
Yeah. I have a little story around that actually that's would be valuable for people. It's actually a story Tony tells. Tony went and spoke to like these recon Marines. I think it was a group of recon Marines, and he gave this whole talk in this, you know, in front of like 1,000 Marines, and then he was riding in the car home with the general. It went and he was just talking about the talk, and the general was like, "Man, it was so great, it was so great," and the general then expressed some sadness. He goes, "The thing is, he's like, we've done the studies. After people leave the Marines, a lot of times their quality of life decreases. Like their standard of life is the highest when they're in the Marines." And Tony and this is the Tony Robbins story. He said, that's because your level you will always rise to the level of the expectations of your peers. And the general was like, "That's really good. Can you say that again?" And Tony was like, "I don't know if I can say that again." He was like, but he says your level, the level of who you are in life always rises to the level of the expectations of your peer group, of the people around you. And so I feel like that is the power of being in a group, whether it's FI Investors or GoBundance or whatever, you know, I feel like that's the power of the group is like, these people actually expect more of you.
Yeah.
They're like, you're, you know, one of my favorite things that, one of my favorite ways to coach people is just to tell them like, hey, I really believe, like if someone does something that I just feel like is so subpar, I'll be like, hey man, like I love you. And like, you're better than that. And I mean it in a little like you are actually better than that. It's like a way to, you know, and I like that because it's just like calling people to a higher standard. And so that's why I love what you guys do, because it's like, if you create an environment that just expects people to step up and have success, people will rise to that level. It's like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do here. We could go into why, like we're tribal in our nature. And so we have to stay in rapport with people around us. Like I can't golf with good golfers because they just hate golfing with me. Right. I'm like, they're so much better. Like they're just like, hey, Sam, we love you. But like, we're going to golf with someone that can actually shoot straight down the fairway. And I'm like right, left. Right.
Oh,
So,
man.
My point is, yeah, like if I want to hang with the good golfers, like I got to freaking get better.
Yeah. And Sam, to take it back, on the co-living side, what does your portfolio look like now? And then I wanna get into like how you got started on the real estate side, so that people that want to get started co-living, they understand whether they want to do it like the quote unquote house hacking way, but also be able to do it how you're doing it now and how you're teaching others how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I probably have, and it fluctuates. We've sold a few, and we just bought, I think 19 more rooms. Some of those are getting filled right now, but we have, I think 155 doors that I own. So 155 rooms, I guess I should say, that we own. And we're managing about 35 more right now.
Wow.
In two markets specifically, Charlotte, North Carolina, and Asheville, North Carolina, two great North Carolina markets. We have 8 luxury, like really nice luxury short-term rentals. And then I own one commercial building that one of my martial arts schools is in.
Okay.
So that's kind of what my real estate portfolio looks like. And then, yeah, I mean, look, here's the truth. Like I explained the difference between house hacking and co-living. In that, like house hacking is like usually people are living there, they're doing it to like live for free or live on less. Like it's more of a live low play. Whereas co-living, it's really the same concepts. Co-living is like a sophisticated investment strategy. It's like you're buying a home specifically for the purpose of, I'm going to rent this to 8 people, and I'm probably never going to, you know, I may not even ever want to set foot in that house. It's an investment play. It's like a mini multifamily unit is really what it is. And we can dive into that more if you want to, but that's kind of how I explain the difference. Just, it's really more the intention of what you're going after is what I think the difference in the word is.
Yeah.
I love that. So talk to me, what is because you said you have 190 units that you manage, rooms, excuse me. To scale that, what is your buy box? What are you looking for? What's the ideal co-living property that you're looking for?
Yeah. Let's get into some of these specifics. So the buy box would be like anything larger than 2,250 square feet, non-HOA neighborhood. I'd say like a B or a C area, even, right? I'm looking for, I need to before I even will go look at a property, I'm always going to look at it on like Google Street View and Google Earth just to make sure that there's street parking or there's parking enough for, say, however many bedrooms I think it can be. And a little formula that I found that might be helpful for people if they're getting into co-living is like, I've just found that at 1,500 square feet, a 1,500 square foot house in almost, in almost any market in the United States is going to be 4 bedrooms. And then every 250 square feet you add on to that, it's an additional bedroom. And so this is just a general rule, but if it's 1,750 square feet or approximately that, it's a 5-bedroom house. I just know that, and again, we're converting some rooms to bedrooms, just to be really clear. We might convert a dining room or an extra living room or something. If it's a 2,000 square foot house, it's 6 bedrooms. If it's 2,250, it's 7. So by me telling you that I would only buy a 2,250 square foot house, that's basically me saying I would never buy anything less than 7 bedrooms. It's another way to put it, just because I kind of know that that's what I can fit in that house and it still feel good and feel like a home to people. I'm looking for something newer than 1970, just because some plumbing and electrical got some good updates in the 70s. And so just to not have to deal with that. Some of the older stuff is nice. So newer than 1970 as far as when it was built. Doesn't have to be crazy updated. It can need some lipstick. I'm willing to put that lipstick on it. I'm willing to paint. I'm willing to redo the cabinets if I need to. I'm willing to put new carpet in or whatever, because I'm already going to be probably putting some walls in and some doors. I already told you non-HOA, parking's a big one. Yeah, those are the first biggest things. And then I look for the layout of the home would be the next one. Like, can I split it up into the number of rooms? If it's a super big open concept floor plan home, it's just, you got to stick walls in weird places. And I don't want to do that. Right. So I'm looking for a home that's like a little bit older, kind of already has a little bit more of a boxy format, that it's just easy to add the rooms. Like maybe I just have to put up a door and a wall versus like 3 walls and a door, something like that. Awesome. 30 to 45 minutes from like a downtown area is really great. That's what I'm seeing in a lot of the larger markets. So, as long as people can commute, if it's near public transportation, that's great. But that really depends on the city. Charlotte, there's like public transportation is total crap. Like you pretty much have to have a car to live here, right? Pretty much. So we've got to be, within 30 minutes of downtown Charlotte is what we found works best. And then if I'm 10 to 15 minutes drive from like some major employers, whether that's a big Amazon office or a big Walmart distribution center, or even just office buildings and stuff, if I'm 15 to 20 minutes from that, I'm looking for what my major employers are around that. Those are things I'm looking for as well.
Awesome. And it sounds like, so the tenants that you're going after too, they're probably young, working professionals, probably right out of college or something. Tell us a little bit more about your ideal tenant.
Yeah, we're basically seeing 2 different types of avatars, if you will, for tenants. We're seeing tenants that are exactly that. They're coming out of college. So let's call them 22 to like 35. And they're single, no kids, not married. So not married, no kids. They have, they work, but maybe they have a lot of debt. And they just want to save money. They want to save money. And they don't see the need necessarily to get an apartment on their own. And then we're seeing an older base too, like 55 plus, that are on a fixed income, kind of jump in and start to rent some of these places as well, because maybe their fixed income hasn't risen enough to like keep up with whatever their rent is. So they're willing to take that hit of like, I'll live with some people as long as it's clean and quiet and safe, which is what we really focus on making these homes: clean, quiet, and safe. And so we're seeing kind of an older population. Again, they might be a lot of times, because we don't do like couples to a room, like they'd have to rent 2 rooms if it was a couple. We're finding they either have gone through a divorce, so they're in the later stage of their life, but they're divorced. They are single, maybe their husband or wife passed away or something like that, that's causing them to kind of look for an arrangement like this.
Cool.
Yeah.
And how have you been financing these types of properties?
Yeah, just through okay, so there's a couple of ways. One, the first 5 I did through just it being my primary residence. So I would live in it for a short period of time. I think technically I was supposed to live in every one for a year. I think I pretty much did that. Maybe I cut 1 or 2 a little bit short, but I'd live in it for a year and then I'd go buy the next one and I'd put my 3.5 or 5% down, right, and get that really great loan.
Yes.
And then once I got,
really quick, Sam, for the audience here, so if you're going to be buying a single family house to house hack, you
Yes.
can do it with an FHA loan, conventional loan, putting 3%, 3.5%
Yep.
down on an FHA, 3 to 5% on a conventional, and then USDA loan and VA loan, you can put 0%. I just wanted to share that because I
Yep.
wanted to let the audience know of how you can house hack with low money down if you're going to start the same way that you did with your first 5.
Yes. And I've seen some people too that are in my course that have like maybe they're not eligible to get that loan because they're living with their kids and their family. But what they'll do, like one guy thought it was so smart. He partnered with a kid. They went 50-50 on it. And the kid was like 25, had a job, and like he got this like 3.5% loan down. And then the guy who was financing it, he's married with kids. Like he's not going to move into a house to house hack, right? But he was able to partner with this guy. And this is like their plan over the next 5 years. They're going to buy 5 houses together. And this kid who's 22, which like he can move, right? He's going to move 5 times. I thought that was just such a cool like partnership hack of like finding a young person that like wants to do it, and you can leverage their job and their loan ability and their ability to like consistently move for once a year for the next 5 to 7 years.
I like that.
That's
so
awesome.
I wanted to share that as well. It was kind of a cool little hack that I heard that one of my guys is doing. And then, so then after I did that for 5 or 6 houses, I would just get conventional investment loans, which you can get up to 10 of those. And so I'd get conventional investment loans.
And those were putting 20% down?
20% down, but still decent rates at the time. I got a couple of Airbnbs as second home loans. So I put those as, 10% down. And again, decent rates as well, but those were just conventional. I could pretty much go to any bank and get those loans. And then once I maxed out at 10, what a lot of people don't know is that once you max out at 10 conventional investment loans, you can always buy another primary. So once a year, you can still always buy another primary. So I've consistently just continued to buy primaries and tried to get my wife to move, and we'll use it for midterm rentals or long-term rentals. We don't like living in the house hack environment right now, but we'll still use that strategy of the primary residence loan because it's just such a great loan, right?
Yeah.
And then I would go to what they call DSCR loans, which debt service coverage ratio loans are just basically loans that are based on the income that property is going to bring in. And so you're going to put 20 to 25% down on those. You're not going to get the best rates. I think right now rates are going to be anywhere from 7 to 8.5, somewhere in there for a 30, but it's 30-year fixed debt. So it's really nice. And I'm hoping somebody comes out with a 40-year fixed one soon. Right. They're coming out with 40-year mortgages. Have you guys heard about this?
I have, yeah.
Yes, I have.
It's going to go, that's going to make residential real estate go gangbusters again, right?
Exactly. And that's what's
everybody
so
that could afford. Yeah, everybody that could afford a $500,000 house can now afford a $750,000 house. Like, let's go.
You're like, because we see it from the perspective of like, we can make that cash flow because then the cash flow, then the mortgage is less, right? Technically. Yeah. So then you can cash flow even more.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm even thinking about it just from like mom and John and Susie who want to buy a house. And right now they're priced out of the market. So they're renting or whatever, or they're just like stuck. And they're like, hey, we could only buy $400,000 houses, but now with a 40-year loan, we can buy a $700,000. I mean, or $600,000 house or whatever. I mean, it's going to bring so much more money in my mind back to residential real estate. But I think it's very positive for residential real estate for 40-year mortgages. But anyway, debt service loans is how I've mostly bought most of the properties. Now, the one little hack that you have to do is these lenders, before they lend you the money, they're going to basically ask you like, how much is that property going to rent for? And a lot of times in today's market with such inflated prices, the amount that you can rent a property for to a single family is not going to cover your mortgage. And so a lot of times these lenders, they'll do this thing they call, I think, a 1035 or whatever. It's like a rent appraisal. And they'll come back and be like, hey, the rent's not going to cover the mortgage. We can't give you the loan, or we have to reduce your loan to value, or we give you less loan or whatever. We have to buy down the rate or all this crap, right? And so the hack for that is to basically underwrite these homes, these co-living homes, as Airbnb properties, because there are a few lenders. And when I say a few, I think there's probably 3 or 4, maybe 5 in the United States total that will take a look at what the property you're buying will produce if it was rented out as an Airbnb. So they take the data from this website called AirDNA. And AirDNA is just a website that basically spits out how much they think your house is going to make on Airbnb based on other Airbnbs in the area. And these lenders will take that data and then they will debt service it based on that number. So it's a much higher number than renting into a single family. Now, I'm not very bullish on Airbnbs right now, but I'll still underwrite it as an Airbnb, get the loan, and then I'll convert it and do co-living.
Yeah. And then you
if my loan officer was listening to this, I'm not sure he'd be super happy about that. But he actually knows is the truth. He knows. He's told me. He's been like, yeah, like this is the only way. This is the only way you're going to really get this loan is if you underwrite it based on an Airbnb. So that's been, I mean, probably the last 6 or 7 or 8. That's how I've done.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Underwriting it on short-term rental income.
I got one quick question here for you, Sam. So when you, I mean, it sounds like you scaled pretty quickly. Where were you sourcing the capital for these down payments? Were you potentially using HELOCs or lines of credits from other properties, or was this just cash flow coming from your business?
Yeah, I was a really good saver. And so keep in mind the first 5 or 6, I scaled through like 3.5%. So, and homes were a little cheaper back then. So, you know, $200,000 or $300,000 home, 3%, 5%, I mean, you're 15, that I could save pretty easily. So I did that, for the first 5 and that was kind of my scrappy play. And then from there, I just would it was like, I would just live on a ton less than I needed to live. You know, I would just really, really, really scrimp by, and save a ton. That was literally my investment strategy. So I had my little cash cow, which I think is an important piece of people's journey of like having something that's bringing in money, living on way less than that. And keep in mind, I was living with a bunch of roommates. So I didn't have housing expenses. And then every time, as soon as I'd get enough for another one, I'd go buy it. And then as soon as I get enough for another one, I'd go buy it. And what's great about real estate is, and one of my mentors told me this, is like, start so slow, man. It's so slow. And then I'd get some investors, like my wife invested a good chunk. She got an inheritance. This was, 2-3 years ago. So we'd scaled a decent amount at that point. She got an inheritance and she invested it in co-living and allowed me to invest it into co-living stuff and some Airbnbs. So that was a big kind of hockey stick growth there. But I treated it like she was an investor. I didn't just take the money. We actually wrote up a contract and like I said, hey, here's your money. Here's what you're going to own. And so I kind of treated it like that. And I've had a family member give me some cash too for just like a hard money loan. I pay him 7%. On my brothers gave me $100,000 to just invest, for, I think it was 3 years, 2 or 3 years that he gave it to me for. So, and now what we've seen is as I've been able to build, I just got through my first phase of selling off a bunch of properties, and selling has been so fun because what happens is you're able to just take some of this cash, and then it's amazing to see the hockey stick growth now of taking properties that you've owned for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, seeing that appreciation, pulling that out and taking what the money that was stuck in one property, the equity that was stuck in one property, and invest it into 5, and allow that to buy 4 more, 5 more. And so there, I think, is the real hockey stick growth, is if you can be patient for that first 10 years. Sounds like a long time, but maybe even less, maybe 7 to 10 years.
Yeah. And
then there is a time, I think, where it comes. I'll give you an example of this. On the same street on Yorkdale Drive in Charlotte, North Carolina, I sold a 4-bedroom co-living house, and I sold it for $400,000. I went down the exact same street and bought a house for $410,000. Little worse condition, but we just started rehabbing it today. It will be a 10-bedroom home.
Wow.
So take like those types of trades where I'm like, I'm going to sell this 4-bedroom and I'm going to buy this, because you learn, right? Now I have a better understanding too. So I'm deploying more knowledge, I'm deploying capital, and being able to move in that direction, I think, is really, really key to level up.
That's awesome.
On that strategy, did you do a 1031 exchange so that you didn't have to pay taxes on the income that you made on that property, or are you okay with that?
I didn't do a 1031 exchange because I had bought like 5 or 6 properties the year before.
Okay.
And so I was able to bonus depreciate all of those properties, and I was able to write off a lot of the sales.
That's good. That's good.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think something that doesn't get a good enough if you're a person of integrity and you're a studier and you're a learner, then I believe there are always people that know, like, and trust you that will lend you money to get started in real estate. Like, I believe that money is like air, it's everywhere. It's a little saying that I just kind of consistently say to myself whenever I start to feel really tight around money, or my mindset starts to get constricted. Like, money's like air, it's everywhere. And if you have the right strategy that you believe in and that will make cash flow, then I absolutely think it's ethical and it's right to ask other people and give them the opportunity to invest in that. That could be partnering with you. I think that's one strategy. But a strategy I'm also really keen on is just going to people that have money sitting in a bank account and giving them 7% on it because they're getting 2%. You know, and saying, hey, I'd like to borrow this for 2 to 3 years. I'm going to buy 2 co-living properties. And then at the end, you know, or I'd like to borrow this money for 2 to 3 years. I'm going to pay you 7%. Obviously, you have to run your numbers to make sure your deal can support this. And at the end of those 3 years, I'm either going to have another investor cash you out, or I'll sell one of the properties, or I'll refinance and pay you off. And so just doing deals like that, I'm bullish on those types of deals because I just think they're simple and they're easy and they're a win-win for both parties.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. And Sam, I know that you've been sharing your knowledge and teaching as now, like with all the experience that you have on co-living, now you're on a path of teaching and helping others. Can you share a little bit about that, what you have going on, and also how people that may want to learn more on the co-living space can learn from you?
Yeah, man, I really believe, as Robert Kiyosaki said 5 or 6 years ago, you know, co-living is the wave of the future. We're seeing it really take off. And I hope more people embrace it because it's an amazing win for investors. It's one of the highest cash flowing assets, if done correctly, out there in the marketplace today. And it's also a huge win. The U.S. Department for Housing and Urban Development just came out, it was last year, they came out with a statement basically saying that they believe co-living will help solve affordable housing. And that all municipalities need to, like, basically do whatever they got to do to make it legal and make it right. And so it's helping people that need housing, and it's just helping people. And so that's why I really believe it's a big win-win. But yeah, I'm just teaching people how to acquire these homes, how to find them, how to find the right deals, how to do them correctly, how to keep the homes clean and quiet and safe, and just how to do it in a way where they're not making a bunch of mistakes and having to make all the mistakes I made over 13 years of doing co-living stuff, right? And so if someone's interested in that, then scaleyourrealestate.com is where they can go to kind of learn a little bit more about my story and also find out what the next event or virtual event that we're hosting is.
Scaleyourrealestate.com, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Sweet.
And dude, and then we also had you as a guest at the FI Investors in Puerto Rico. It was an honor. Yes, you're wearing the shirt representing FI Investors Puerto Rico. Dude, you're a salsa. One of the reasons why I invited you is because you're a salsa dancer.
Yeah.
House hacking, like real estate, co-living. Like we started the same thing with like abundance and everything. So everything just fell into place. But for the audience here, can you can you let them know how it all started when you said yes to coming to Puerto Rico?
Well, one of the reasons I love hanging out with you guys so much is that you guys are just so fun.
That's true too.
And case in point,
the
first night of the mastermind, and I'll tell how it all started. But first night of the mastermind, Diego, like very, very seriously, like he should as a leader, gets up and is like, "All right, guys, like no partying tonight because like we got a big weekend ahead, and we're gonna." And like, it was not 30 minutes later that someone was like, "Yeah, but there's salsa dancing tonight." Diego's like, "Screw it. We're going salsa dancing."
Oh man, but we had a blast.
2 a.m. later, everybody's having a blast. It was just a great time. Diego, you are one of the, because Ward, you were there and you were a huge piece of this, but like both of you guys are doing such a great job at cultivating. And this is what we talked about, like the art of fulfillment, right? Like who cares if you're like just multi-millionaire, but you're not having fun? And you guys do such an amazing job of combining growth and love and connection between your community that you guys are building and like, let's freaking have fun. And I need to learn a lot more about that because my wife will tell you I'll just be up in this office all day, right? So thank you. And I wasn't drinking that week either, so it was tough. I was like, I'm not drinking. Everybody's like, it's just such a great time. But yeah, man, Diego, I'll never forget, man. You give me a call and He said, Sam, I want you to be, the millionaire case study at my event in Puerto Rico. And I was like, okay, the normal talk, like, give me the dates. What's the dates? And you're like, and then Diego's like, but there's one more thing. Here's how I'm going to interview you. I'm going to be sitting on a yacht off the coast of Puerto Rico, at an island off the coast of Puerto Rico, with the tropical landscape behind and the beach. And we're all going to be there. I'm going to interview you on this yacht in the middle of the ocean at this little island. And I'm just like, yeah, I'll figure out a way to say yes to this. Let's freaking go.
Yes. And what's crazy, dude.
What I didn't know is that you had no plan for a yacht. You just got off the phone with me, called your buddy, was like, guys, we got to get a yacht now.
That's exactly what happened. Exactly that. I was like, oh, he said yes. Now I need to figure it out how this is going to happen. And, right. But we did make it happen. And we have a picture of us two, like with the background in Vieques. And it was just like, it was amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah, that was
you crushed that event, guys. You crushed that event. So fun.
Sam, kudos to you for coming out, man. That was one of the best millionaire case studies that I've ever heard, and just so picturesque. The value and the knowledge that you dropped was amazing, and it was such a memorable experience. So thank you again for coming out, man.
You got it. Thanks for creating magical moments, man.
It was awesome. It was awesome, and we are gonna be planning one for Austin in September. It hasn't been announced yet or anything yet, but I'll definitely tell you a little bit more on that. So excited for that one. But Sam, as we wrap up here, what is next for you? Like what's gonna be your way of like if 2023 and 2024 is a great one, what does that look like for Sam Wegert?
Yeah. Well, I believe, and I hope people take this to heart. I think one of the beliefs, whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. The belief really helps me, is that the best is yet to come. Mm-hmm. And so I think thinking for all of us, the best is yet to come is a really important little belief or a little affirmation that I say to myself a lot. But, I think of any time in history, now is the time where people need to take control of their life and take control of their finances. And I just am a firm believer that that things are going to get way worse before they get better. I'm not a doomsdayer too much, but like just seeing everything that's happening in the global economy. So for me, the reason I shared that as a belief is because that's what I believe. I believe the economy is going to get worse before it gets better. And so I believe that I need to double down on what the world will need in 2 to 3 to 4 years from now. And I 100% believe that is co-living. Mm-hmm. I think housing is already a crisis, but I think housing will be even more of a crisis in the next few years. Again, that's my belief. So I'm just going all in on what I believe is basically what I'm trying to say. And that is building co-livings from the ground up. So building, teaching people how to do it, and then managing them. So build, teach, manage is my little model. Build, teach, manage. And it's all around co-living, man. That's what we're doing. We're spreading the word, and we're helping people get back in a great place to live where they have built-in community that's clean, that's quiet and safe. And I just want to keep spreading the word on that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. And one of the questions that I have for you, Sam, what does financial independence mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, my traditional answer is like, it just means I get to do what I want, when I want, with whom I want. That's ultimate financial independence, right? Mm-hmm. But ultimately, for me, it just means I get to work when I get to work on the things that are most meaningful to me and what I feel like are the most meaningful to the world.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
And I'm not having to do a job because I have a mortgage to pay. Mm-hmm. I get to work. I still get to work, and I work a lot. But I get to work on the things that I just feel like are most meaningful. And that's a beautiful choice. That's a beautiful place to be. I'm really grateful to be at that place.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then before we end here, we do like to end each of these episodes with a quick lightning round. We've got 4 questions here for you. Sam, are you ready, man?
Yeah, man, let's go. I'm ready for the lightning round.
All right. What was your biggest hurdle with getting started in real estate investing, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, I would say my biggest hurdle with getting started in real estate investing, and how did I overcome that? There's so many hurdles. It's hard to think of the biggest one. So that's why that question's tripping me up. I would say just picking a strategy. Mm-hmm. like picking a strategy on how I'm going to do it. Airbnb, short-term rentals, midterm rentals, like I'd say that. And how I overcame that was by finding mentors and getting coaching and asking everybody I knew and leaning into what was working at the time, which was co-living.
Awesome. And then do you have a personal habit that attributes to your success?
Recently, meditation.
Meditation.
And it could be moving meditation. I'm not talking like sitting with my like this. I'm talking like going for a walk in the woods being my meditation, or just getting out and having solace and thinking and pondering and journaling. So I'd say that's a big one for me right now.
I love that, man. Okay, second to last one here. What is one book that you read recently that had the most impact in your life?
What have I been reading recently? I read the Principles, 12 Principles to Live by Jordan Peterson. I think that's the name of the book.
Yes.
Anyway, Jordan Peterson writes this book, 12 Principles to Live by, I think is the name of the book. And it's just it's a great deep book about like principles that you should be basing your life on that are just timeless. That's been a really good one.
I love it. I love it. And our final question here, if you could go back, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
Oh, everything we've been saying in this podcast, I'll just be like, don't take life too seriously. Like no one gets out alive anyway, right? Like,
Yes.
Have fun, which I feel like I've learned from you guys. Have fun, focus on fulfillment and the journey, and not just success. I was very one focused, at that 20-year-old stage of life, and I would be more relaxed and more loving to people, I think, if I could go back and do it all over again.
Awesome.
That's interesting, Sam. And one last thing to wrap up. I know that we've mentioned Tony Robbins a lot, and you and I went to an event. It was in 2017 or 2018.
Yeah.
It was 6 days with Tony Robbins, jumping up and down till 3 or 4 in the morning, and then we would go back, right, and talk about everything. Having Tony as one of your mentors, right, as learning and everything, I know that we talked about it, but what is the one thing that you've taken the most out of his teaching that you've implemented in your life?
Yeah, I would say I'll give two. Two come to mind. One is one we've already I think hit home really hard to this episode, which is art of fulfillment is just he says it more powerfully. I'll say it how he says it. He says success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. Like imagine having everything, being successful, and you're not happy. You're the freaking worst failure in the world because you have everything. At least if you didn't have everything and you're complaining, that's one thing, but you have everything. We live in America and we're successful just to live in America. So I think that's a really powerful way that he says that. I don't say that to make anybody feel bad, but I'm just saying for people to balance out their achievement of success with living a fulfilled life. So I think that's one thing. And then the second thing that Tony is just so good at doing is he has the saying that if you get in your head, you're dead. And so much of us live in our heads, meaning we're pondering, we're thinking, we're trying to create solutions, But a true full life comes from dropping a little lower and like living and making more heart-based decisions, which I was hanging out with Jay the other day. We were in Miami and she came out and hung out with us. And she was saying, we were talking about you, Diego, and we were just like, that's why we all love Diego, And Ward, you fall in that same boat, man. It's like, you guys are just guys that make decisions from your heart. Which means that you put like people above profits, right? Which means you're going to make decisions more from a place of like love and connection and expansion than you are from what your head a lot of times focuses on, which is like protection and security and, and fear. And so really finding that balance is something I've learned from Tony a lot. Like you can't just let your head, and your brain run the whole show. You have to come back to your heart. And that's been big for me, man.
Yeah.
I'd say those are a couple of the biggest things.
That's huge. Because it's all, at the end of the day, it's all about focusing and living your life from abundance. I feel like that has been one of the things that has helped me the most, right? Because like if you're in your head, you're thinking about every little thing that may go wrong, like monetarily or whatever. But I feel like if you attack life, right, from the abundance mentality, you just begin to see things in different ways, and you get to see more opportunities rather than thinking, oh, this is not going to work for me.
Yeah, it's the saying is you don't ever get beyond scarcity. You have to start. How does it go? get beyond abundance, right? You have to start there. I think it's basically what I hear you saying is like, if we can start with a foundation of abundance, then the rest is gravy, right?
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Sam, thank you very much. I know we ran a little bit over, but I really appreciate your time. And dude, I'm really looking forward to hanging out with you again. I have to say this story because I was like, oh my gosh. So you called me like about a month ago, and you're like, Diego, do you want to go on a private yacht? I mean, on a private plane. On a private plane. Yeah. Do you want to go on a private plane? We'll go from like Charlotte to Miami for a day. Come hang out. And I was like, dude, I would love to, but I can't. It's Mother's Day weekend, so I have to, like, I already had all this plan with my mom in Chicago, which was an amazing trip. Yeah. Awesome. But dude, I was like, I told you, I was like, I called you to come on a yacht, and then you called me to come on a private plane, and I had to say no. But next time, bro, I'll say yes, 100%.
Absolutely. So I'll try to give you a little bit more notice next time we're taking a jet.
Yes. But what's really cool about that, and it came to me, I was like, holy crap, like those are, like, it's really cool to know, because you said, hey, I have one spot left and I want you to be it, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, what an honor, number one. But number two is like, what an incredible opportunity for that, and that you can do that too with your friends and everything. So it's super inspiring from that perspective. But Sam, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. And I know that the audience are going to leave here like super inspired to take on and to learn more, scaleyourrealestate.com. Yeah. Right. And Sam on Wegert, Instagram,
samwegert.com, at Sam Wegert on Instagram, or samwegert.com as well as another place. But yeah, Instagram's a great way to connect with me as well.
Cool. Sam, thank you very much. And Ward, pleasure to have you here as well.
As always, Sam, thank you so much, man. Loved diving into your story. I've learned a lot. I know our audience just received massive value, dropped lots of knowledge bombs, and we can't wait to see you here soon.
See you, Ward. See you, Diego. Love you guys. Peace.
Love you, brother. We'll talk soon.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the FI Investors Podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And share this with a fellow real estate investor who you think would find value in what we do. Until next time.